Jake Morrison stood at attention in the briefing room, his hands clasped behind his back. The metal walls of the diplomatic vessel hummed with the sound of the engines. Captain Lisa Hammond walked back and forth in front of the security team explaining their mission. "This is a simple protection detail," she said, looking at each person. "Princess Liara of the Valorian Empire will be traveling with us to the peace negotiations. Your job is to keep her safe. Nothing more, nothing less." Jake nodded along with the others. He had been a soldier for 10 years before joining the Diplomatic Security Service. He had seen combat on 3 different worlds, but he had never protected an alien princess before. The thought made him nervous. After the briefing ended, Commander Eric Stone pulled Jake aside. "Morrison, you're on personal detail. You stay with the princess at all times." "Sir, why me?" Jake asked. "Because you're the best we have," Stone replied. "And because this mission matters more than you know. If anything happens to that princess, the peace talks fail. If the peace talks fail, we might be looking at war." Jake swallowed hard. "Understood, sir." 2 hours later, Jake stood outside the docking bay. The Valorian shuttle was approaching. He checked his weapon one more time, even though he had already checked it 5 times. His heart beat faster as the shuttle doors opened. Princess Liara stepped out and Jake forgot to breathe for a moment. She was tall, almost 7 feet, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. Soft blue light glowed beneath her skin, pulsing gently. Her eyes were large and silver without pupils. She wore flowing robes that seemed to move on their own. Behind her came 6 Valorian guards, all armed and watching everything with suspicious eyes. Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Your Highness, I'm Jake Morrison. I'll be your personal security officer during this voyage." The princess looked at him with those strange silver eyes. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music. "A human will protect me? How amusing." Jake felt his face get hot. "I assure you, Your Highness, I'm fully qualified." "I have my own guards," she said, gesturing to the warriors behind her. "I do not need a human following me around." "It's protocol, Your Highness," Jake said, keeping his voice level. "I follow orders, and my orders are to keep you safe." The princess made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Very well, human. Try to keep up." She walked past him, her guards surrounding her. Jake followed, feeling like he had just failed some kind of test. The first 2 days passed without incident. Jake stayed close to the princess, even though she clearly did not want him there. She spent most of her time in her quarters or in meetings with the human diplomats. Jake stood outside doors, walked corridors, and tried not to feel useless. On the 3rd day, everything changed. Jake was escorting the princess back to her quarters after a dinner with Captain Hammond. They were walking through the main corridor when the light suddenly went red. Alarm screamed through the ship. "What is happening?" Princess Liara asked, her eyes wide. Jake grabbed his radio. "Stone, what's going on?" "We're under attack!" Stone's voice crackled with static. "Multiple vessels, unknown origin. They're boarding us. Get the princess to the escape pods now." Jake did not hesitate. He grabbed Princess Liara's arm. "We need to move now. My guards," she started to say. "There's no time." Jake pulled her down the corridor toward the escape pods. Behind them, he heard explosions and gunfire. People were screaming. They ran through the ship. Jake's training took over. He moved on instinct, pulling the princess around corners, avoiding the main corridors where he heard fighting. Twice they had to hide while armed attackers ran past. Jake recognized their armor. "Krell Syndicate. Pirates and mercenaries. They're targeting the diplomatic areas," Jake whispered. "They're looking for you." Princess Liara's face had lost its glow. She looked afraid. "How do you know?" "Because that's what I would do," Jake said. He checked around the corner, then pulled her forward again. "Come on." They reached the escape pod bay. Half the pods were already gone. Bodies lay on the floor. Jake tried not to let the princess see them. He rushed to the nearest pod and hit the release button. Nothing happened. He tried another. Same result. "They've locked down the system," he said, his mind racing. He looked around and saw a manual override panel on the wall. "Stay here." Jake ran to the panel and ripped off the cover. Wires and circuits filled the inside. He had about 30 seconds before the Krell found them. Maybe less. Behind him, Princess Liara gasped. Jake spun around and saw 3 Krell soldiers entering the bay. They raised their weapons. Jake drew his pistol and fired in one smooth motion. The first soldier dropped. The second one shot back and the blast hit the wall next to Jake's head. Jake rolled to the side and fired twice more. The second soldier fell. The third soldier aimed at Princess Liara. Jake did not think. He jumped between them, firing as he moved. His shot hit the soldier in the chest. The soldier's shot hit Jake in the shoulder, spinning him around. Pain exploded through his arm. He hit the ground hard but kept his weapon up. The soldier was down. All three were down. "Are you injured?" Princess Liara knelt beside him, her hands glowing with blue light. "I'm fine," Jake grunted, getting to his feet. His shoulder burned, but he could still move it. "We need to get out of here." He went back to the panel, using one hand to reconnect wires. His blood dripped onto the circuits. Finally, something clicked and the pods lit up green. "Get in," he ordered, pushing the princess toward the nearest pod. "What about you?" she asked. "I'll be right behind you." Jake sealed her inside and hit the launch button. Nothing happened. More Krell soldiers were coming. He could hear them in the corridor. Jake looked at the panel again and saw the problem. The launch system needed 2 pods to fire together for some safety reason. He jumped into the pod next to the princess and sealed it. Through the window, he could see her silver eyes watching him. He hit the emergency launch and both pods exploded from the ship. The acceleration crushed Jake against the seat. Red lights flashed everywhere. The pod shook violently and he heard metal tearing. Through the small window, he could see the diplomatic ship getting smaller. He could also see the Krell vessel surrounding it firing weapons. Then he saw something worse. One of the Krell ships was shooting at the escape pods. "No, no, no," Jake whispered, strapping himself in tighter. The blast hit his pod from the side. Systems exploded around him. The pod spun out of control, tumbling through space. Jake's head cracked against something hard and his vision blurred. Through the spinning chaos, he tried to see the princess's pod. Was she okay? Had they hit her too? The pod's emergency systems kicked in, trying to stabilize. Jake looked at the navigation screen. It was mostly broken, but he could see they were caught in a gravity well. A planet. They were going to crash. Jake tried to steer, but nothing responded. The pod was dead in the water, falling toward the green and blue planet below. He could see the princess's pod nearby also falling. They entered the atmosphere and everything became fire and noise. The heat was incredible. Jake thought he was going to burn alive. The pod's exterior was melting and smoke filled the cabin. He covered his face with his good arm and prayed. The impact came suddenly. One moment he was falling, the next the world exploded in violence. Metal screamed. Trees crashed. The pod rolled and bounced and finally came to rest on its side. Jake hung in his straps, bleeding and dazed. Every part of his body hurt. His shoulder was worse now. The wound reopened and bleeding freely, but he was alive. He hit the release on his harness and fell to the side of the pod, landing badly on his injured shoulder. He screamed in pain but forced himself to move. He had to find the princess. Jake kicked open the pod door and crawled out into humid air. He was in a jungle. Massive trees surrounded him, their leaves so thick they blocked most of the sunlight. Strange sounds filled the air. Animal calls, he thought. Or hoped. He looked around and saw a trail of destruction where his pod had crashed. And beyond that, more broken trees. The princess's pod. Jake stumbled through the jungle, using trees to hold himself up. His vision kept blurring. He had lost blood and probably had a concussion. But he kept moving. He found her pod 50 yards away. It had crashed into a massive tree and split open. Jake's heart sank. "Princess!" he called out, stumbling toward it. He found her lying in the wreckage, unconscious. Her skin had stopped glowing. Cuts covered her face and arms. One of her legs was bent at a wrong angle. Jake dropped to his knees beside her and checked for a pulse. He did not know where Valorians kept their hearts, but he felt for any sign of life. There, a flutter under her neck. She was alive. "Okay," he said to himself, trying to think through the pain and exhaustion. "Okay, first aid. Need to stabilize her." He looked around the wreckage for the emergency medical kit. Every escape pod had one. He found it crushed under a piece of metal. Most of the supplies were destroyed, but he salvaged what he could. Bandages, a stimulant injector, some kind of alien medicine he did not recognize. Jake did his best to bandage her wounds. He did not know if he was doing it right for a Valorian, but it was better than nothing. He used pieces of the pod to splint her leg. As he worked, Princess Liara's eyes flickered open. She looked at him with confusion and pain. "What happened?" she whispered. "We crashed," Jake said, "on some planet. I don't know where." Jake carried Princess Liara through the jungle for what felt like hours. His arms burned with exhaustion, and his wounded shoulder felt like it was on fire. Sweat poured down his face. The princess had passed out again, which was probably better. At least she was not feeling the pain as he stumbled over roots and pushed through thick vegetation. The jungle was alive with sounds. Creatures screamed and howled in the darkness. Things moved in the trees above them. Jake tried not to think about what might be watching them. He just kept moving, looking for anywhere they could rest safely. Finally, he saw something through the trees. Stone structures, old and covered in vines. Ruins of some kind. Jake changed direction and headed toward them. The ruins were bigger than he thought. Walls and buildings made of strange blue stone rose up from the jungle floor. Most had collapsed long ago, but some still stood. Jake found a building that still had most of its roof and carried the princess inside. He laid her down as gently as his shaking arms would allow, then collapsed next to her. Every muscle in his body screamed. His shoulder was bleeding again. He was so tired he could barely think, but he forced himself to get up. Sleep later. Work now. Jake went back outside and found large leaves to make bedding. He dragged in fallen branches to block the entrance. It was not much, but it would have to do. He checked the princess's bandages and was relieved to see the bleeding had mostly stopped. Then he let himself rest, sitting with his back against the wall, his pistol in his lap. He would sleep in shifts, 4 hours on, 1 hour off, military training. He lasted about 30 minutes before exhaustion pulled him under. Jake woke to sunlight on his face and pain everywhere. He sat up quickly, reaching for his weapon, then relaxed slightly. The princess was still asleep. Nothing had gotten inside during the night. He checked her again. Her skin had regained some of its glow, which he hoped was a good sign. Her breathing was steady. The leg was badly swollen, but the splint was holding. Jake stood up and immediately regretted it. His shoulder had stiffened overnight, and moving it sent waves of pain through his arm. He needed to clean the wound properly or it would get infected. He went outside to explore. The ruins were extensive, covering several acres. Buildings and pathways spread out in all directions. Vines and trees had reclaimed most of it, but the stone structures still stood strong. Jake found a stream running through the ruins. The water looked clear. He tasted it carefully, waiting to see if he would get sick. When nothing happened after a few minutes, he drank deeply. The water was cold and sweet. He filled a piece of metal from the pod with water and brought it back to the building. Then he stripped off his uniform shirt and examined his shoulder wound. The bullet had gone through, which was good, but the wound was angry red and hot to the touch. Not good. Jake cleaned it as best he could with the water and one of the remaining bandages. He wished he had antibiotics. He wished he had a lot of things. "You are injured worse than you said," a weak voice spoke behind him. Jake turned to see Princess Liara awake, watching him with those silver eyes. "It's not that bad," he lied, pulling his shirt back on. "You carried me for hours with that wound," she said. "Why?" "Because that's my job," Jake said simply. He brought her the water. "Drink this. You need to stay hydrated." She drank, then looked at him more carefully. "What is your name again?" "Jake Morrison, Your Highness. Just Liara," she said. "I think we are past titles now." She tried to sit up and gasped in pain. "Don't move," Jake said quickly. "Your leg is broken. We need to keep it still so it can heal." "How long will that take?" Liara asked. "I don't know. I've never treated a Valorian before." Jake sat down across from her. "Do your people heal faster than humans?" "Normally, yes," Liara said. "But I am weak. I used too much energy during the attack. My healing is slow now." Jake did not understand what she meant by energy, but he nodded anyway. "Then we rest. We have water and shelter. Food will be the next problem." "There are things in this jungle," Liara said, fear creeping into her voice. "I can sense them. Large things. Dangerous things." "I know," Jake said. "That's why we're staying here. These ruins offer some protection." He stood up and checked his pistol. "I'm going to look around, see what else I can find. I'll be back soon." "Wait," Liara said. "What if something comes while you are gone?" Jake pulled a knife from his boot and handed it to her. "If anything that's not me comes through that entrance, you stick it with the sharp end." He left before she could argue. Jake explored the ruins carefully, always keeping the building with Liara in sight. He found more structures, some with strange symbols carved into the walls, some kind of writing, but nothing he could read. In one building, he found something interesting, Metal containers sealed and ancient. He opened one carefully and found it filled with some kind of dried food. He had no idea what it was or if it was safe to eat, but he took it anyway. In another building, he found technology, old machines covered in dust, connected by cables to a central structure that looked like some kind of power source. Nothing worked when he tried it, but the fact that it existed at all was interesting. Someone had lived here once. Jake was heading back when he heard something, a low growl coming from his left. He froze, slowly turning his head. The creature was huge, easily twice the size of a lion. It had 6 legs and skin like armor plates. Its mouth was full of teeth, each one as long as Jake's hand. And it was looking right at him. Jake raised his pistol slowly. The creature tensed, ready to charge. Then it leaped incredibly fast for something so large. Jake fired 3 times, hitting it in the chest. The shots barely slowed it down. He dove to the side, and the creature crashed into the wall behind where he had been standing. Jake ran, firing over his shoulder. The creature roared and chased him. He could hear its claws scraping on stone as it ran. It was faster than him. Much faster. He would not make it back to Liara's building. The creature would catch him first, or worse, follow him there. Jake changed direction, running toward a collapsed building. He jumped over fallen stones and slid under a half-fallen wall. The creature tried to follow and got stuck, too big to fit through the gap. It roared and started trying to break through the wall. Stone cracked under its strength. Jake kept running, circling back toward Liara. He had to lead it away, had to make sure it did not find her. He ran for 10 minutes, his lungs burning, his shoulders screaming. Finally, he could not hear the creature anymore. He stopped, gasping for air, and listened. Nothing. Either he had lost it or it had given up. Jake made his way back to the ruins carefully, watching for any sign of danger. When he finally reached the building where Liara waited, he was exhausted and shaking. "What happened?" Liara asked as he stumbled inside. "I heard gunshots." "Local wildlife," Jake said, sitting down heavily. "Very unfriendly local wildlife." "You are bleeding again," Liara said, pointing at his shoulder. Jake looked down and saw fresh blood soaking through his shirt. "Yeah, probably should not have run like that." "Come here," Liara said, holding out her hand. "Let me see." "You need to save your strength," Jake protested. "And you need to stop being stubborn," Liara said firmly. "If you die from infection, we both die. Come here." Jake moved closer, sitting beside her. She reached up and placed her hand on his wounded shoulder. Her palm began to glow with soft blue light. Jake felt warmth spreading through his shoulder. The pain faded, replaced by a tingling sensation. He watched in amazement as the wound began to close, the torn flesh knitting itself back together. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Healing," Liara said. Her face was tight with concentration. "We Valorians can manipulate biological energy. It allows us to heal injuries." She pulled her hand back and the light faded. The wound was not completely healed, but it was much better. Liara slumped back against the wall, breathing hard. "That is all I can do for now. I am too weak for more." "You should not have done that," Jake said. "You need that energy for yourself." "You saved my life," Liara said simply. "More than once. This is the least I can do." She looked at him with those strange silver eyes. "Why do you keep risking yourself for me? You barely know me." Jake was quiet for a moment. "Because it's what we do. Humans, I mean. When we make a promise, we keep it. I promise to protect you. So that's what I'll do, even if it kills me." "That makes no sense," Liara said. "Your life is worth just as much as mine." "Maybe," Jake said. "But you're more important. If you die, the peace talks fail. Thousands of people might die in a war. If I die, well, I'm just one soldier." "You are not just anything," Liara said softly. "You are brave and loyal and stubborn. You carried me through the jungle with a bullet wound. You fought a monster to protect me. You are worth more than you think." Jake felt his face get hot. He was not good with compliments. "I was just doing my job." "No," Liara said. "You went far beyond duty. I judged you wrongly before. I thought humans were simple, brutish creatures. But you are neither simple nor brutish. You are remarkable." Before Jake could respond, they both heard it. A sound in the distance, engines. Jake jumped to his feet and ran to the entrance. He looked up at the sky through the trees and saw them. Ships. 3 of them, flying in a search pattern over the jungle. "They found us," he said. "Is it rescue?" Liara asked hopefully. 3 days passed and the Krell kept searching. Jake watched from hiding spots in the ruins as their ships flew overhead. Landing parties spread out through the jungle. They were getting closer every day. During those 3 days, something strange happened to Jake. He started feeling things that were not his own feelings. Emotions that seemed to come from nowhere. Sadness, fear, determination. And he realized they were coming from Princess Liara. On the 4th day, while they were eating the dried food Jake had found, he finally asked about it. "I can feel your emotions," he said. "Is that normal?" Liara looked at him with surprise. "You can feel them? Already? Already? What does that mean?" Liara was quiet for a moment. "When I healed you, I created a bond between us, a connection of energy. Usually it takes time to develop, but you are sensing it faster than I expected." "What kind of bond?" Jake asked, not sure if he liked this. "It is hard to explain," Liara said. "Our life energies are linked now. We can sense each other's emotions. With time and practice, we might share thoughts as well. It is rare among my people, reserved for very close bonds." "You should have asked first," Jake said, feeling invaded. "I am sorry," Liara said, and she truly sounded it. "I did not think it would form so strongly. Usually only family or bonded mates create such connections." Jake did not know what to say to that, so he changed the subject. "Your leg is healing."
"Can you stand yet?"
"A little," Liara said, "but not well enough to walk far." "We might need to move soon," Jake said. "They're expanding their search grid. They'll be at these ruins in a day, maybe 2. "Can we hide from them?" Liara asked. "Maybe, but I have a better idea." Jake stood and started checking his gear. "I've been watching their patrols. They're sloppy, overconfident. I can use that." "What are you planning?" Liara asked, concern in her voice. "I'm going to reduce their numbers," Jake said simply. "Every soldier I take out is one less hunting us." "That is suicide," Liara said. "You cannot fight them all." "I don't need to fight them all. Just thin them out a bit." Jake loaded his pistol and tucked his knife into his boot. "I'll be back before dark." "Jake, please," Liara said. And through the bond he felt her fear. "Please be careful." "Always am," Jake said with a smile he did not feel. Then he left, disappearing into the jungle. Jake moved through the trees like a ghost. His shoulder was mostly healed thanks to Liara, and he was getting used to the jungle. He knew which plants to avoid, which paths the big predators used where the ground was solid. He found a Krell patrol after an hour of searching. 3 soldiers, moving through the jungle in a lazy spread formation. They were talking loudly, not paying attention. Amateurs, Jake climbed a tree and waited. The soldiers passed underneath. When the last one was in position, Jake dropped down behind him and drove his knife into the base of the skull. The Krell dropped without a sound. The other 2 did not notice for several seconds. When they turned around, Jake was already back in the trees. They found their dead companion and started shouting into their radios. Jake circled around and waited. Eventually, they would have to move the body, and when they did, they would be distracted. He was right. The 2 soldiers picked up their fallen comrade and started carrying him back toward their landing site. Jake followed in the trees, quiet as death. When they set the body down to rest, Jake struck. 2 shots, both headshots. The soldiers fell. Jake took their ammunition and one of their radios, then disappeared back into the jungle before reinforcements arrived. He hit 2 more patrols that day, using similar tactics. Stay hidden, strike fast, vanish. By the time the sun was setting, he had killed 8 Krell soldiers and the enemy was afraid. He could hear it in their radio chatter. They were no longer treating this as a simple search and capture. They knew something was hunting them now. Jake made it back to the ruins after dark. Liara was waiting, her face tight with worry. The moment he entered, she reached out and touched his arm. "I felt your fear," she said, "during the fighting. I felt when you were in danger." "Sorry," Jake said. "Did not mean to worry you." "Do not apologize for staying alive," Liara said. She looked at him more carefully. "Did you accomplish what you wanted?" 8 down, Jake said. "They're scared now." "Good. Scared people make mistakes." "You could have died," Liara said softly. "But I did not," Jake replied. He sat down next to her and shared the food he had taken from the Krell soldiers. Real food this time, not the ancient dried stuff. "How's the leg?" "Better. I can stand now, though walking still hurts." Liara ate slowly, watching him. "Why do you do this?" "You could try to signal your own people, find a way to escape." Instead, you stay and fight. Because they want to kill you, Jake said. And I won't let that happen. The bond is affecting you, Liara said, making you more protective. It is a side effect of the connection. Maybe, Jake admitted. Or maybe I would do this anyway. Guess we'll never know. Through the bond. He felt Liara's emotions, gratitude, warmth, and something else. Something deeper that neither of them wanted to name. The next morning, Jake heard something on the Krell radio that changed everything. They were bringing in their leader. Warlord Krax himself was coming to take charge of the hunt. Jake knew that name. Everyone in the military knew it. Krax was legendary among the Krell, a brilliant tactician and ruthless warrior. If he was coming here, things were about to get much harder. We need to move, Jake told Liara. Today, can you walk? I will manage, Liara said, standing up with difficulty. She could put weight on her leg now, but she limped badly. They packed what little they had and left the ruins. Jake supported Liara as they moved deeper into the jungle, away from the Krell landing sites. He was looking for somewhere they could hide better, somewhere more defensible. They walked for hours, stopping frequently so Liara could rest. Through the bond, Jake felt her pain and exhaustion, but also her determination. She never complained, never asked to stop. As the sun reached its highest point, they found it. A canyon system, narrow and deep with caves in the cliff walls. Jake helped Liara down into the canyon and into one of the caves. It was perfect. Only one way in, easy to defend and hard to spot from above. They rested in the cave while Jake scouted the surrounding area. The canyon twisted and turned, creating a natural maze. If the Krell found them here, Jake could use the terrain against them. That night, lying in the dark of the cave, Liara spoke quietly. Tell me about Earth, she said. About your home. Jake was surprised by the question. Why do you want to know? Because I want to understand you better, Liara said. You humans confuse me. You are fragile compared to my people. You have no psionic abilities, no natural weapons. Yet you fight like you are made of iron. Why? Jake thought about it for a while. Because we have to. Humans are not the strongest or the fastest. We are not the smartest or the toughest. But we survive because we do not give up. Ever. We adapt. We endure. We keep going when anyone else would quit. Is that what you are doing now? Liara asked. Not giving up? Yes, Jake said simply. I am starting to understand why the universe fears your species, Liara said softly. You are terrifying in your determination. Jake laughed quietly. Never thought of it that way. They were silent for a while, then Liara spoke again. What will you do if we survive this? When we are rescued? Go back to work, I guess, Jake said. Protect other diplomats. Maybe retire eventually. Would you ever want to see me again? Liara asked, and Jake felt nervousness through the bond. He turned to look at her in the darkness, seeing the faint glow of her skin. Yes, I would like that. Good, Liara said. Because I would like that too. The next day, the Krell found them. Jake heard the ships first, flying low over the canyon. Then he heard voices echoing off the stone walls. They were coming. He positioned himself at the cave entrance with his pistol and the Krell weapons he had taken. Liara sat behind him, unable to fight but refusing to hide completely. The first Krell soldier appeared at the canyon entrance. Jake shot him, then another, and another. Bodies piled up at the narrow entrance, but they kept coming, more and more of them firing back now. Jake had to keep ducking back into the cave to avoid getting hit. He was running out of ammunition. Then he heard a new voice, deep and commanding, speaking in the Krell language. The soldiers stopped advancing and formed a line. Warlord Krax stepped into view. He was massive, even for a Krell, covered in battle scars and wearing armor decorated with the symbols of his victories. He looked at the bodies of his soldiers, then up at the cave where Jake was hiding. Human, he called out in accented but clear English. You fight well, but you cannot win. Surrender the princess and I will let you live. No deal, Jake shouted back. Then you will die here, Krax said. Both of you. Maybe, Jake replied. But I'll take a lot of your soldiers with me. Krax seemed to consider this. You are brave. Stupid but brave. Why do you protect her? What is she to you? Jake looked back at Liara, saw her silver eyes watching him. He felt her emotions through the bond. Fear for him, not for herself. She's someone worth protecting, Jake said. He turned back to Krax. And I don't surrender, ever. Then die with honor, human, Krax said. He raised his hand to signal the attack. But before his soldiers could move, the sky above the canyon lit up with light. Ships appeared, dozens of them. Human ships and Valorian ships. The medical bay on the Valorian flagship was like nothing Jake had ever seen. The walls glowed with soft light, and the air smelled like flowers. Medical staff moved around him with quiet efficiency, their hands glowing as they worked. Jake sat on a bed while a Valorian doctor examined his shoulder. The wound that had plagued him for days was healing quickly now under proper care. Another doctor was treating various cuts and bruises he had accumulated during the survival ordeal. Across the room, Princess Liara was receiving treatment for her broken leg and other injuries. Jake could feel her relief through their bond. She was going to be okay. Admiral Frank Carson, the commander of the human rescue fleet, stood nearby with his arms crossed. He was a tall man with gray hair and a stern expression that reminded Jake of his old drill instructor. "You did good work down there, Morrison," Carson said, "keeping the princess alive against those odds. The diplomats are calling you a hero." "I was just doing my job, sir," Jake said. "Just doing your job," Carson repeated with a slight smile. "Son, you survived a crash landing, fought off jungle predators, took out 8 enemy soldiers, and held off a full assault by one of the Krell's best warlords. That's a bit more than just doing your job." Before Jake could respond, the doors to the medical bay opened and someone important entered. Jake could tell by how everyone suddenly stood straighter. He turned to look and felt his breath catch. Queen Sylveth was breathtaking. She looked like an older, more regal version of Liara, her crystal skin glowing brighter, her presence commanding. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and her silver eyes held the weight of authority. Everyone in the room bowed. Jake tried to stand and bow too, but the doctor pushed him back down. The queen walked directly to her daughter. They embraced, and Jake heard them speaking in the Valorian language. He could feel Liara's emotions through the bond: joy, love, relief. Then the queen turned and looked at Jake. She walked over to his bed, and Jake felt like those silver eyes could see right through him. "You are Jake Morrison," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty," Jake said, trying to bow his head respectfully while sitting. "My daughter has told me what you did," Queen Sylveth said. "How you protected her. How you carried her when she could not walk. How you fought to keep her alive." "Any of my team would have done the same, Your Majesty," Jake said. "Perhaps," the Queen said, "but they are not here. You are." She placed her hand on his shoulder, and Jake felt warmth spread through him. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. "You have bonded with my daughter." It was not a question, but Jake answered anyway. "She healed me." She said it created a connection. "More than a connection," the Queen said quietly. She looked back at Liara, then at Jake again. "Such bonds are sacred to my people. They cannot be broken easily." "I did not ask for it, Your Majesty," Jake said, "but I do not regret it either." The Queen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Rest now, Jake Morrison. We will speak again soon." She returned to her daughter, and Jake felt like he had just passed some kind of test. He was not sure if he had passed it well or poorly. Over the next few days, Jake recovered quickly. The Valorian medical technology was impressive, healing injuries that would have taken weeks in human hospitals. His shoulder was almost completely healed now, with barely a scar. He was given quarters on the Valorian flagship while the diplomats figured out what to do next. The peace negotiations would continue, but now with even more urgency. The Krell attack had proven that not everyone wanted peace. Jake was told he would receive medals from both the human and Valorian governments. There would be ceremonies and interviews. He hated the idea of all that attention, but orders were orders. What bothered him more was that he had barely seen Liara since the rescue. She was busy with her mother and the diplomatic staff. Jake understood, but he missed her presence. The bond made him constantly aware of where she was, how she was feeling. It was strange and comforting at the same time. On the 5th day, Liara came to his quarters. She looked different now. She wore formal robes instead of the simple clothes from their survival days. Her skin glowed brightly, fully healed. She looked every inch a princess. "Hi," Jake said, suddenly feeling awkward. "Hello," Liara replied. She looked around his quarters with curiosity. "Are they treating you well?" "Very well," Jake said. "Your people have been kind." They stood in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Everything felt different here on the ship, with walls and civilization around them. During their survival, things had been simple. Now they were complicated. I wanted to thank you properly, Liara said finally, for everything you did. You saved my life many times. You saved mine too, Jake pointed out. You healed me. Without that, I would have died from infection. Still, Liara said. She took a step closer. I owe you a debt I can never fully repay. You do not owe me anything, Jake said firmly. I told you before. I was doing my job. It was more than that, Liara said softly. I can feel your emotions, remember? I know how you feel about me. Jake felt his face get hot. The bond went both ways. Of course she knew. I am sorry if that makes things awkward, he said. It does not, Liara said, taking another step closer, because I feel the same way. Before Jake could respond, his door chimed. Admiral Carson entered without waiting for permission. Morrison, the Queen wants to see you, Carson said, now in the throne room. Jake looked at Liara, who seemed as surprised as he was. Did you know about this? No, Liara said. Mother did not tell me. The throne room was enormous, with a ceiling that looked like the night sky. Hundreds of Valorian nobles filled the space, all watching as Jake entered with Admiral Carson and several other human officers. Queen Sylveth sat on a throne made of crystal at the far end of the room. Princess Liara stood beside her, looking confused. High Chancellor Verath, the Queen's chief advisor, stood on the other side. Jake walked forward and bowed deeply. Your Majesty. Jake Morrison, the Queen said, her voice carrying through the vast room. You have done our kingdom a great service. You protected my daughter at risk of your own life. You showed courage, loyalty, and honor. Thank you, Your Majesty, Jake said, not sure where this was going. In recognition of your service, I am granting you the title of Shield of the Crown, the Queen continued. It is an ancient honor, given only to those who have proven themselves worthy of protecting the royal family. Jake heard Admiral Carson inhale sharply beside him. Apparently this was a big deal. I am honored, Your Majesty, Jake said, bowing again. The honor comes with responsibilities, the Queen said. As Shield of the Crown, you will remain in Valorian service. You will be assigned to protect my daughter permanently. You will train in our ways and learn our culture. You will become part of our world. Jake felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Remain in Valorian service? Permanently? Your Majesty, Admiral Carson spoke up. With respect, Morrison is a human citizen. He has obligations to his own people, which we will honor, the Queen said smoothly. He will retain his rank in the human military. He will serve as a liaison between our peoples, but his primary duty will be to my daughter's protection. Jake looked at Liara and felt her shock through the bond. She had not known about this either. Your Majesty, Jake said carefully, I am grateful for the honor, but I should return to Earth. I have family, friends, a life there. I understand, the Queen said, but I am not asking Jake Morrison. I am telling you, you have bonded with my daughter. Such bonds are rare and sacred. You cannot simply walk away from it. The bond will cause you both pain if you are separated for long. Mother, Liara spoke up, you cannot force him to stay. I can and I am, the Queen said. There was steel in her voice now. This is not just about you, Liara. This is about our kingdom. Jake Morrison has proven he can be trusted. In these dangerous times, I need someone like him protecting you, someone who will die before letting harm come to you. Jake felt trapped. He looked at Admiral Carson, who looked back with sympathy but no help. This was way above both their pay grades. This was politics between two civilizations. How long? Jake asked. How long must I serve? That depends on many things, the Queen said. For now, let us say indefinitely. Jake felt Liara's distress through the bond. She was upset with her mother, angry at being used like this, but she was also conflicted because part of her wanted Jake to stay. I need time to think, Jake said. You have one day, the Queen replied. Tomorrow you will give me your answer. But know this, Jake Morrison. If you refuse, it will be seen as an insult to our kingdom. The peace negotiations may fail, and the bond you share with my daughter will cause you both pain. The Queen stood, signaling the meeting was over. Everyone bowed as she left the room. Liara followed her mother, but she looked back at Jake with worried eyes. Admiral Carson put his hand on Jake's shoulder. That was a trap, he said quietly. A very elegant trap. She has you cornered. I know, Jake said. He felt numb. What do I do, sir? That is not for me to say, Carson replied. But I will tell you this. Whatever you decide, make sure it is what you want, not what duty demands. Not what politics requires, what you want. Jake spent the rest of the day alone in his quarters, thinking. The bond let him feel Liara's emotions. She was arguing with her mother, angry, and 6 months had passed since Jake Morrison became Shield of the Crown. 6 months of living on the Valorian throne world, learning alien customs, training with Valorian warriors, and protecting Princess Liara. It had been the strangest 6 months of his life. Jake stood in the training arena, facing off against 3 Valorian soldiers. They circled him slowly, their skin glowing with psionic energy. One of them was Prince Aldrich, Liara's older brother and heir to the throne. "Are you ready, human?" Aldrich asked with a slight smile. "Always," Jake replied, falling into a fighting stance. The 3 warriors attacked at once. Jake moved fast, using techniques he had learned both on Earth and here. He blocked a psionic blast from one, swept the legs out from another, and rolled under Aldrich's charge. But fighting psionics with no powers of his own was hard. Very hard. One of the warriors hit him with an energy burst that sent him sprawling. Jake got up quickly, breathing hard. His body had adapted to the heavier gravity of the Valorian world, and the constant training had made him stronger. But it still was not enough against psionic powers. "You are improving," Aldrich said, calling off the attack. He helped Jake to his feet. "Last month you would have been down in seconds." "Thanks," Jake said, wiping sweat from his face. "Though getting knocked down in 10 seconds instead of 5 is not much improvement." Aldrich laughed. "You humans and your humor. Come. My sister is waiting for you." Jake followed Aldrich out of the training arena and through the crystal corridors of the palace. He still found the Valorian architecture beautiful. Everything glowed with soft light, and the walls sometimes showed images of distant stars. He found Liara in the royal gardens, sitting by a fountain. She smiled when she saw him. "How was training?" she asked. "I got beat up slightly less than usual," Jake said, sitting beside her. "So that is progress." Liara laughed and took his hand. The bond between them had grown stronger over the months. They could now share thoughts as well as emotions, though Jake was still learning to control it. Sometimes Liara heard things he did not mean to share, which was embarrassing. "General Murphy is arriving today," Liara said. "For the ceremony," Jake groaned. "I forgot about that." "You cannot forget your own medal ceremony," Liara said, amused. "Both our governments are honoring you again." "I have enough medals," Jake muttered. "I just want to do my job." "You are terrible at being famous," Liara teased. "Most people would enjoy all this attention." "I am not most people," Jake said. Lady Mira, one of the Valorian nobles who served as cultural advisor, approached them and bowed. "Your Highness, the Queen requests your presence." "Both of you." Jake and Liara exchanged looks. Queen Sylveth wanting to see them together usually meant something political was happening. They found the Queen in her private chambers, reviewing documents on a holographic display. High Chancellor Vareth stood beside her, looking concerned. "Mother?" Liara said. "You wanted to see us?" "Yes," the Queen said. She dismissed the display and turned to face them. "I have received troubling news. Duchess Celestria is challenging Jake's position as Shield of the Crown." Jake felt his stomach drop. Duchess Celestria was the leader of the traditionalist faction, nobles who opposed closer ties with humans. She had opposed his appointment from the beginning. "On what grounds?" Liara asked, her voice tight. "She claims that a human cannot properly serve in such an honored role," Vareth explained. "That it dishonors Valorian traditions. She has gathered support among the noble houses." "This is ridiculous," Liara said angrily. "Jake has proven himself countless times." "I know," the Queen said calmly. "But politics is not about truth. It is about perception. And many nobles agree with Celestria. They see Jake as an outsider, regardless of his service." "What does she want?" Jake asked. The Queen looked at him with those silver eyes. "She is demanding trial by combat. If you win, your position is secure and the traditionalists will accept you. If you lose, you must return to Earth." "Mother, you cannot allow this," Liara said. "I must," the Queen replied. "If I refuse, it will look like I am protecting Jake because I doubt his abilities. That will only make things worse." She looked at Jake. "The choice is yours. You can accept the trial or you can leave with honor. Either way, you will be respected." Jake felt Liara's fear through the bond. She was terrified he would be hurt. "Or worse, who would I fight?" Jake asked. 3 of Celestria's champions," Vareth said. "All highly trained warriors with significant psionic abilities. One after another or all at once? Jake asked. All at once, Vareth replied. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. 3 trained Valorian warriors with psionic powers. He had just barely held his own against 3 in training, and they had not been trying to kill him. But if he refused, he would have to leave. The peace between humans and Valorians could be damaged, and he would be separated from Liara, which would hurt them both because of the bond. When is the trial? Jake asked. 3 days, the Queen said. Then I accept, Jake said. Jake, no, Liara said, grabbing his arm. You could be killed. I will not be killed, Jake said with more confidence than he felt. I just need to train harder. The next 3 days were brutal. Jake trained from dawn until late at night. Prince Aldrich helped him, teaching him tactics for fighting multiple opponents. General Murphy arrived and brought human combat techniques to mix with the Valorian ones. Colonel Ryan Webb, Jake's old friend from the military, came with Murphy. He watched Jake train with a frown. You are going to get yourself killed, Ryan said bluntly. Probably not, Jake replied, blocking a strike from Aldrich. These are not training matches, Ryan said. They will use lethal force. I know, Jake said. Then why are you doing this? Ryan asked. Jake paused and looked across the arena to where Liara was watching. Because I found something worth fighting for. Ryan followed his gaze and nodded slowly. I see. Well then, let me show you a few tricks. On the night before the trial, Jake could not sleep. He stood on the balcony of his quarters, looking up at the alien stars. The bond told him that Liara was awake too, worried about him. She appeared on his balcony a few minutes later, using some kind of teleportation. Jake was still getting used to the casual use of psionic abilities. You should be sleeping, Jake said. So should you, Liara replied. She stood beside him, and they looked at the stars together. I am scared, Liara admitted quietly. I do not want to lose you. You will not lose me, Jake promised. You cannot know that, Liara said. You are human. You have no psionic abilities. They will use every advantage against you. Good, Jake said. I fight better when I am the underdog. Liara turned to look at him. Why do you do this? You could leave. Go back to Earth. Live a normal life. I do not want a normal life, Jake said. Not anymore. This last half year with you has been the best time of my life. I have purpose here. I have you. Why would I give that up? Even if it kills you? Liara asked. Even then, Jake said. He took her hand. Besides, I am not going to die. I am going to win, because that is what humans do. We fight against impossible odds and somehow come out alive. Liara smiled despite her worry. You are either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, Jake admitted. They stood together in silence, holding hands until the sun began to rise. The arena was packed with thousands of Valorians. Jake stood in the center, wearing light armor that the Valorian warriors had given him. It would not stop psionic attacks, but it would protect against physical ones. Across from him stood 3 warriors. They wore the colors of Duchess Celestria and looked confident. They had every right to be. They were trained from birth for combat. Jake had only been training seriously for 6 months. In the royal box, Queen Sylveth sat with her family. Liara was there, her face tense. Jake could feel her fear through the bond. He sent her a feeling of confidence back, trying to reassure her. Duchess Celestria stood and addressed the crowd. Today we determine if this human is truly worthy to serve as Shield of the Crown. Let the trial begin. The 3 warriors spread out surrounding Jake. He turned slowly, keeping them all in view. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. He had trained for this. The first attack came fast. A psionic blast aimed at his head. Jake dove to the side, rolled, and came up running. He closed the distance to the nearest warrior before the others could react. Hand-to-hand combat. That was where he had the advantage. Valorians relied too much on their psionic powers. Up close, they were not as skilled. Jake traded blows with the first warrior, blocking and striking with speed born of desperation. He landed a hard punch to the warrior's throat, and the warrior stumbled back, gasping. The other 2 attacked together. Jake felt the psionic energy building in the air. He could not block it. He could only avoid it. He ran, using his smaller size and human agility to dodge between attacks. Energy blasts scorched the ground where he had been standing. The crowd gasped and cheered. Jake grabbed a fallen piece of debris and threw it at one warrior, distracting him for a moment. Then he tackled the other one, wrestling him to the ground. They rolled across the arena floor, each trying to gain advantage. Jake felt a psionic blast hit his back. Pain exploded through him, but he held on to the warrior beneath him. He could not let go. If he let go, they would kill him from a distance. He headbutted the warrior once, twice, 3 times. The warrior went limp. 1 down. Jake woke up in the medical bay 3 days after the trial. His body was wrapped in healing bandages and Valorian technology hummed softly around him. The first thing he noticed was Liara, asleep in a chair beside his bed. She was holding his hand. Through the bond, he felt her exhaustion. She had barely left his side since the fight. "Liara," he said softly. Her eyes opened immediately. Those silver eyes he had come to love. "Jake, you are awake." She stood and pressed a button to call the medical staff. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by 3 psionic warriors," Jake said with a weak smile. "So pretty accurate." Liara laughed, but tears ran down her face. "I thought you were going to die. When you fell at the end, I thought my heart would stop." "I am fine," Jake said, squeezing her hand. "It takes more than that to kill a human." The doctors came in and checked him over. His injuries were healing well, they said. He would be back to full strength in a week. Over the next few days, Jake received visitors. Prince Aldrich came and congratulated him on the victory. "You fight like a wild animal," he said with approval. "It is terrifying and effective." General Murphy visited and told Jake that his victory had become famous on Earth. "You are a hero to 2 worlds now," Murphy said. "People are calling you the first true bridge between our civilizations." Even Duchess Celestria came, though her visit was brief and formal. "You have earned your place, human," she said stiffly. "I will oppose you no longer." But the most important visitor came on the 5th day. Queen Sylvith arrived with High Chancellor Vareth. Liara was asked to leave the room, which worried Jake. The Queen sat beside his bed and looked at him with those ancient, wise eyes. "You surprised me, Jake Morrison," she said. "I did not think you would win." Jake was not sure if he should be offended or amused. "You let me fight even though you thought I would lose?" "I gave you a choice," the Queen corrected. "You could have left with honor. Instead, you stayed and fought. That told me more about your character than any victory could." "I do not understand," Jake said. The Queen smiled slightly. "Tell me, Jake, why did you fight? Was it for duty? For honor? For the peace between our peoples?" Jake thought about lying, but the Queen would know. "I fought because I love your daughter, and I could not leave her." "That is what I thought," the Queen said, "and that is why I arranged everything." Jake stared at her. "What do you mean, arranged?" "The trial, the challenge from Celestria, all of it," the Queen said calmly. "I orchestrated it, but why?" Jake asked, confused and a little angry. "Because I needed to know the truth of your heart," the Queen explained. "When I first declared you Shield of the Crown, you accepted because you felt trapped. Because of duty and politics. I needed to know if you would stay by choice, freely given, not because you had to." "So this was all a test?" Jake said. "Everything is a test," the Queen replied. "Life, love, leadership. I am a queen, Jake Morrison. I must think of my kingdom first always, but I am also a mother. I see how my daughter looks at you. I feel the bond you share. It is rare and precious." The Queen stood and walked to the window. "There is something else you should know. The Valorian prophecies speak of a union between our people and humans, a bond that will unite our worlds and bring an age of peace. When you saved my daughter, when you formed the bond with her, you began to fulfill that prophecy." Jake felt like the ground was shifting under him. "You are saying I am part of some prophecy?" "I am saying that fate has brought you to us," the Queen said. "But prophecy only works if people choose to fulfill it. I could not force you to stay. I could not force you to love my daughter. Those choices had to be yours, made freely." "So you manipulated me into making them," Jake said. "I gave you opportunities," the Queen corrected. "You made the choices. You chose to protect Liara when you could have run. You chose to bond with her when you could have refused healing. You chose to stay when you could have left, and you chose to fight when you could have walked away with honor. Every step of the way, the choice was yours." Jake was quiet, processing this. "Does Liara know?" "Not yet," the Queen said. "I will tell her when the time is right. But I wanted you to know first, because I need to ask you something important." "What?" Jake asked. "Do you truly love my daughter?" the Queen asked. "Enough to spend your life with her? Enough to become part of our world permanently?" Enough to have the universe watching your every move as a symbol of human and Valorian unity? Jake did not hesitate. Yes to all of it. The Queen smiled, a genuine warm smile. Good. Because my daughter loves you too, though she is too stubborn to say it plainly. You are good for her, Jake Morrison. You make her brave. You make her think differently. You challenge her to be better. She does the same for me, Jake said. Then I give you my blessing, the Queen said, not as a queen giving permission to a subject, but as a mother blessing her daughter's choice of partner. Jake felt emotion well up in his chest. Thank you, Your Majesty. The Queen left and Liara came back in immediately. She looked at Jake with concern. What did my mother say? You look strange. She gave me permission to court you properly, Jake said. Liara's eyes went wide. She what? She said I could court you, Jake repeated. If you want me to, that is. Liara sat down slowly, looking shocked. Then she started laughing. My mother is the most manipulative person in the galaxy, but I suppose in this case I am grateful for it. So is that a yes? Jake asked. It is a yes, Liara said, leaning forward to kiss him softly. It has always been a yes from the moment you carried me through that jungle. 3 months later, Jake stood in the throne room again. But this time it was different. He wore formal diplomatic robes, half human and half Valorian design. The room was filled with dignitaries from both worlds. Senator Margaret Cole from Earth was there, along with Admiral Carson and General Murphy. The Valorian nobles filled the other half of the room, including Prince Aldrich and even Duchess Celestria. Queen Sylveth stood at the front with Liara beside her. Jake walked forward and bowed. Jake Morrison, the Queen said in a voice that carried through the room. You have served as shield of the crown with honor and courage. You have proven yourself to both our peoples. Today we recognize that service formally. You are hereby appointed as the first ambassador of unity, the Queen continued. You will serve as a bridge between our civilizations, a living symbol of what we can accomplish together. You will lead the new joint human and Valorian security force, training others to follow the path you have blazed. Jake bowed again. I am honored, Your Majesty. There is one more thing, the Queen said, and Jake saw her smile slightly. My daughter has something to say. Liara stepped forward. She looked nervous, which was strange. Jake had never seen her nervous before. Jake Morrison, she said formally, you saved my life. You bonded with me. You chose to stay when you could have left. You fought for me when it would have been easier to walk away. You have shown me what it means to be brave, to be loyal, to be true. She took his hand. I want you to know something. The bond we share, it is not just rare. Among my people, such bonds are considered sacred. They form only between those who are meant to be together. Soulmates, you humans would call them. Jake felt his heart beating faster. I love you, Liara said simply, and if you will have me, I want to spend my life with you. As partners, as equals, as the bridge between our worlds that we were meant to be. The room was completely silent. Everyone was watching. Jake smiled and pulled Liara closer. I love you too, and yes, I will have you, for as long as you will have me. They kissed, and the room erupted in cheers from both humans and Valorians. That evening, Jake and Liara stood on a balcony, overlooking the Valorian capital. The city glowed with bioluminescent light, beautiful and alien and home. Are you happy? Liara asked, leaning against him. More than I ever thought possible, Jake said honestly. 6 months ago, I was just a soldier. Now I am an ambassador, a symbol, and engaged to an alien princess. Life is strange. Do you regret it? Liara asked. Giving up your old life? No, Jake said. I found something better. I found purpose. I found you, Liara smiled and kissed him. Through the bond, Jake felt her happiness mixing with his own until he could not tell where one ended and the other began. The next day, Jake met with Colonel Ryan Webb in private. Ryan had stayed for the ceremonies but was leaving soon to return to Earth. So you are really doing this, Ryan said, staying here permanently, marrying an alien, becoming some kind of super diplomat. I am, Jake said. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds impossible, Ryan said. But you always did like doing impossible things. He smiled and put his hand on Jake's shoulder. I am happy for you, brother. You found something special. Do not let it go. I will not, Jake promised. Senator Cole met with him as well. She had been one of the politicians who pushed for Jake's return to Earth earlier. I owe you an apology, she said. I did not understand what you were accomplishing here. But I see it now. You are not just a soldier or a diplomat. You are a symbol of hope, a proof that our peoples can not only coexist but thrive together. I am just doing my job, Jake said. No, Cole said firmly. You are doing much more than that. You are building the future. A week later, Jake started his new role officially. He met with the first recruits for the Joint Security Force, humans and Valorians who would train.